So, as you may already be aware, Adobe has recently added some basic 3D functionality to After Effects. Before this, if you wanted to add anything 3D into an After Effects comp, you were looking at using plugins like Element 3D or Helium. But now you can drop 3D assets straight into After Effects, which of course has some brilliant applications for map animations. So today I want to show you how to put together a 3D animation like this one. So first of all, we're going to go over to one of my favourite websites, David Rumsey, and get ourselves a nice high-def map scan. You can find one geographically using this tool here called the Map Rank Search. I've already got a file from a previous project, so I'm just going to go ahead and use that. Next, we're going to go into After Effects and we're going to create ourselves a new composition. When creating this composition, you need to go over here to 3D Render and select Advanced 3D. Select OK and create the comp. Next, we're going to go over to the internet and we're going to go to a website with some free image resources like Unsplash or Pond5 or something like that. So we're going to go here and we're going to search for a wooden tabletop. I'll link to some good options down below, but I've got another one which I'm just going to use. And then the next thing we're going to want is an image of a bookshelf. And you're going to want an image that's sort of facing straight on the bookshelf, something like that, but without the text. I'll link to an option down below. So we're back in After Effects, so let's go get the image that we just downloaded and plonk it in. So there it is. Now we're going to do Ctrl-Alt-F to scale it up to the size of the composition. Now there's a few other things that we need to do as well. First of all, we're going to make this 3D, and then we also need to go down here into Material Options and make sure that Accept Shadows is on. And then one thing I'm going to do, just to help sell the table edge effect when we 3D it, is we're just going to do a very slight mask on the edge. Hit F and set that to the feather to about 1. This is just going to give a very slight blurred edge just to help sell that illusion. Next, we're going to grab that David Rumsey image that we had earlier and we're going to drop this in. Now a couple of things we need to do to this. So first of all, scale it down. They come in a very large file sizes, the David Rumsey images, so it should be quite large when you initially drop it in. So we're going to do a mask and just crop off the edges like that. So we've just got the map. We're going to make this 3D. Now something I find you need to do is you actually need to set in this new 3D render mode, when you're tilting the camera, it can sometimes kind of clash with the tabletop if it's on the exact same plane. So we're just going to go P and then the Z space, we're going to set to about -1. You shouldn't really pick it up with your eye, but it will stop that kind of clash effect. And then we're also just going to add a slight drop shadow as well, just to kind of add that 3D element to it. Do that, and then you just want to bump the softness up as well. Maybe set that to something like that. It's not much, but you can just about see it around the edge. And lastly with this, we're just going to twirl down like we did with the tabletop to Material Options and make sure that Accept Shadows is on. Now, we need some 3D assets. There's lots of good options for these online, some paid, some free. Some really good places to find these are a website called TurboSquid and another one called Sketchfab. So I'm going to go over here to this website called Sketchfab. Now I think it would be really nice to add a compass to this. So I'm just going to search compass here. Ooh, is that the Dishonored compass? Okay, you know what, I'm going to show what a nerd I am in case the map animation tutorial channel wasn't enough, and I'm going to use that. So we come here, download model. Now you can download it in all sorts of different file formats. After Effects can take OBJ and GLB files. I'd recommend, if the option is there, getting the GLB file, because this comes into After Effects with all the textures preloaded. So just hit download. Next, I also think it would be nice to have a telescope in the background. So we're just going to search telescope. That's a good one. I'll link to what I've used down in the description. So now we're going to go and plonk our asset in. So I've got the compass. I'm just going to name that compass. And we're going to drop that in here. Just hit OK. Something we're going to have to do is we're going to have to scale it up a bit. There we go. And then we're going to have to rotate it on the x-axis to 0, so then it will stand upright. Then I would recommend pressing C, rotating the camera like that. Ooh, there we go. So you can see what kind of plane it's on. And then we're basically going to lower it in the Z-axis until it is sat on the table. So there, it's clipping into the table there. So we want it just about there. Ooh, scooch it off to the side, and then scale it up to the appropriate sizing. And then we're going to twirl down into the settings within it, compositing options, and we're going to make sure that cast shadows is on. Then just to get back to the way we were, we're going to go view, reset default camera, should jump it to that position there. Now, the next thing that we're going to have to do is we're going to have to go back online again, and we're going to have to find something called an HDR image. This is going to basically provide the artificial environment that's going to be simulating lighting on our 3D scene. A really good website to find free versions of these is Polyhaven. So I'm going to go over and access that now. Polyhaven, HDRIs. And then I'm just going to search for this one that I found earlier that I think provides a nice warm lighting for our scene. There we go. Click on that. We want to be downloading it as an HDR file type and click download. Again, I'll link to this down in the description. Then hopping back over into After Effects, we're going to come in here and then we're going to drop in the HDRI image that we got. So here is that. It should appear there. Now we're going to go New, Light, and then you see this new light type called Environment. We're going to select Environment Light. Hit OK, and then within Source, you're going to change default to Thatched Chapel. Now we're going to check that Cast Shadows is on, like all the other layers. Now, pro tip, if you're finding that your scene is responding a bit slowly when you're animating it, then one thing you can do is you can come and hit Draft 3D. It will lower the quality of the image, but it will mean that it responds much quicker. Now, we're just going to reset the view again, reset view. We're going to come and we're going to drop in that bookcase image that we got earlier. Let's say bookcase. There we go. So we're going to drop that in here. We're going to shrink it down a little. Now we're going to hit R to bring up rotation. Oh, sorry, make sure it's 3D. And then the X-axis we're going to set to 90 degrees. So it should appear like that as a single plane. Then we're going to shift it back in Z space. And then if I rotate the camera, you'll see it there. Now, one thing we're going to do is within this new advanced 3D mode, depth of field doesn't actually work. So something we're going to do to sell that illusion of depth is we're just going to apply a Gaussian blur to this. And we're going to maybe bump that up to about 20, just to give it that slight fall off as if it was an actual camera filming the scene. Then between the bookcase and the table, we're just going to drop in that telescope that we downloaded earlier. Here it is. Shrink that one way, way down. And like we did earlier, we're going to set the rotation to 0, so it's upright. And then we're just going to shift it backwards. There we go. So it sits sensibly in the scene. Now, something else that we're going to do is this scene is currently a little bit gloomy. So what I want to do is I want to create a new light, and we're going to make this a spotlight. So spotlight. There we go. That's sort of shining right down on the map, which looks really nice. I just want to raise this slightly higher, I think, to provide sort of a slightly elevated lighting situation. There we go. I think that's about right. View, reset. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to create a new camera. So do that, hit OK, press C, and then hold Shift and rotate it downwards like that. Now, what we're going to do is we're just going to have a play with the dolly, which is this tool here, and then also the scale and position in Z space of all of these assets here, just so that they appropriately fill up the screen and you don't have all this black space here. Now, if you find when you move the camera that there's a slightly odd parallax between the table and the bookshelf in the background, one thing you can do is you can move it further away in Z space and then scale it up. So now we're going to go into the camera and we're going to set up some keyframes of the movement. Now, one thing I personally like to do, because I find it to be the easiest way to work in it, is I'm just going to go here and I'm going to turn on the keyframes for all of these parameters. And then I'm also going to click here and I'm going to do separate dimensions for the position. Now, what I want to do is I want to start sort of slightly edge on, and I want to go for a rotation in and then tilt the camera around to a slow dolly zoom into the map. You of course can do whatever camera movement you like, but of course if you want you can just follow along exactly with what I'm doing. So I'm going to start over here and I'm going to shift the Y rotation to about +8, I think, and move that over. Next, I'm going to come down the timeline and I'm going to basically create my animation in. And one thing I like to do is I like to slightly offset the Z position move in, as I think it provides quite a smooth animation. So you can see I've moved this keyframe here over to the center there. We're going to highlight all of them and we're going to easy ease them by hitting F9. Now we're going to come over to the graph editor and we're going to make sure that we've got the speed graph selected here. And we're just going to have a little play around with these values, just basically so that it never freezes, so that it's in constant motion. And we're just going to sort of smooth it out like that, just so that the change is consistent between the keyframes. So let's take a look at that. There we go, that's nice. Now these remaining keyframes here, we're just going to want to provide a very slight easy ease at each end to these. So you can do that just by selecting easy ease like that. And then you see you've got a nice graph there. So let's see how that looks. Perfect. Now one last thing we're going to do is we're just going to, at the extreme of this position, where you can see the black edges, we're just going to basically alter the scale of the bookshelf so that that is covered. So I feel that the parallax is a little odd on that bookshelf, so I'm just going to shift it back in Z space like that. And then we're just going to scale it up. And then we'll maybe just alter the position of the telescope as well. So there we go. That's how you make a 3D map animation within After Effects. I'm selling my map animations, so if you want to talk to me about anything like that, then there's a Google form down in the description. And if you've got any questions about this technique, then please do just let me know in the comments. Thanks.